We are so excited to have you here at Taking Christmas Digital. So we'll give everybody kind of a minute to get settled, make sure you've got your coffee, and then we will get started. We are exactly, what is this? August, September, October, November, December. We are 4 months away from Christmas, which feels like an eternity, but it's going to go by like that. We're just going to blink and it's going to be here. So we are ready to dig in. And if you haven't started your Christmas planning yet, we're hopeful that today you are going to be ready to start your Christmas planning. So, all right. Hopefully everyone's got their coffee, and we're going to get started. So welcome to Taking Christmas Digital. This is a project that, my name is Ann Chansky. I work at Central Wesleyan Church in Holland, Michigan, and I work in the spiritual formation department. And this is a dream that I came up with Tim Haynes because we want to equip churches for this new season in the digital world. Everything about ministry has been turned upside down. That's changed everything about how all of us do our jobs. I'm small groups and big events. You better believe this has been a crazy season. So thinking about what we need to be thinking about in this season, we want to be planning for an awesome digital Christmas. So how do you plan for Christmas in the era of COVID-19? We think the answer is actually very simple. You start planning right now. Again, 4 months away. We actually need to get started today if you haven't actually started. I think my guest from Central told me, I think we started planning our Christmas series and Christmas plans last week. It's time to get going. So here's how today is going to work. We've got a bunch of panelists lined up. A lot of my friends from Central Wesleyan Church and the Water's Edge Network, some other friends from other areas of ministry. We're going to start at 10 a.m. We're going to talk about a case study, Central Wesleyan's Path to Christmas. How does Central Wesleyan Church, which is a church about 3,000 attendees pre-COVID, how do we plan for Christmas and other big events? At 11 o'clock, we're going to be talking to Central's digital marketing manager, Jessica Behrens, about getting the word out and promoting Christmas in the digital age. You're not going to want to miss that session. We had a ton of questions from her in the last webinar we did, and so we're bringing her back so we can get more opportunities to hear from her about social media. And then at 12 p.m., we are Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be talking about planning for Christmas. What's your next step? You got a blank piece of paper, mark, set, go. We've got a couple of creative guys who have worked in ministries of all sizes. And so you'll want to stick around for all of that. And stuck in there in the middle, we've got an interview with Kathy Craig, who is a marketing expert at Whirlpool. She's going to be sharing some of her wisdom about marketing in the digital era. There will be additional material coming after this session. We have materials that will explain a lot of the things the panelists are going to be talking about that your team can adapt or adopt if you don't have anything and you're ready to get going. So make sure you're registered at www.symposialabs.com, taking Church Digital, and that will make sure that you're getting up-to-date information and all of those materials today. I want to thank today's sponsors. We have Baker Bookhouse, which is a book publishing company that we work with at Central, and others do too, to provide us with materials. We use it a lot for small group resources, so I would encourage you to check them out, and thank you so much, Baker, for supporting us today. And the Colossian Forum, which is an organization that's working right now to equip churches to have difficult conversations about difficult conflicts. I'm really excited about their new political materials about how to talk about politics in the church, so I would definitely check them out as well. Again, my name is Ann Chansky, and we're just going to dive into this forum. So thank you for all getting the nuts and bolts out of the way, and we're going to dive into our session here, Central's case study. So let's introduce our panelists. These are all dear friends of mine. If I can get this slide down. Here we go. Kathleen Miller, a colleague of mine from the communications department, manages all of Central's communications, everything. I'm pretty sure nothing at Central or any of the network churches that we work with goes live without passing literally through her desk first. So she does all of that. And then in her spare time, she produces our services as well. So, you know, just nothing to say. Keeps herself busy. Kim Fowler has, Kim, how many years is it now? 12, 15 years? We had some discussion about how many years you've been producing services.
Oh, it's Central? 12
In general,
at
yeah.
Central. I won't mention how long in other churches.
All right, we won't out Kim, but she has just tons of experience producing services, leading both the worship arts team, the communications team, and now she's leading our spiritual formation team. And so she is looking at Christmas from lots of different perspectives. And Nate Marielke, worship leader and a songwriter, who has been planning services for years in smaller churches, bigger churches, and has been working with the central team for the last couple of years and working the central process. So thank you guys so much for being here. And we're going to take down the slides and we're going to just dive right in. And actually today I want to start with Kim Fowler. Kim, we have this process and we're going to dive into this process in a minute, but we have this process that we use at Central to plan events, big and small, but definitely applies to Christmas. Can you tell us why we have this process, why we even took the time to put this together?
Yeah, I think that the why is, because it always comes out of struggle. It's a problem to solve. So the why is so often, like the tech team would say, well, what's happening in that room? Or you would hear communication say, you changed the time of that event. We didn't know that. Or facilities, you want what room? Did you schedule that? It was that tension of departments trying to communicate. So it's communication was the number one thing. And
So
I
just
think the why of is, so I wrote it down. So everyone who needs to know knows or knows where to find what they need to know. So it's communications. It's so people know what's happening. Does that make
Yeah, so the internal communications piece is so important on this. And for those of you who are on the webinar right now, and I think um, Kim paused there for a moment, but for those of you on the webinar now, I'm sure we can all relate to not knowing what's coming next. I know when I was communications director, this was a big challenge. Nate, paint a typical Christmas for us at Central. What does a non-COVID Christmas experience look like for us at Central?
Yeah, so I love how Kim was talking about the why. So this is where I wanted to start. By the way, hello everybody. It's great to be here. The why, why do like a production at Christmas? Most churches are doing something extra, and the reason is we want to introduce people to Jesus. I mean, this is when we celebrate that Jesus came to earth. He came to us, and so now we want to do everything we can to introduce people to him. And at that time of the year, people tend to start having their thoughts turned towards Jesus, whether they know it or not. They're walking through the mall and they hear a song about Jesus being a baby. So, we want to pull out all the stops and put a lot into this presentation of the love of God through Jesus. So what does it look like? It looks like a lot of moving parts. It looks like a lot of creativity. So again, we started last week talking about this. I've got a meeting with Kim after this meeting, actually, to continue to discuss what this is going to look like. So it's usually a lot of people. We have an orchestra, a choir. So the musical piece is a lot of variety. So we want to connect with, we really want to bring as much culture in as we can. So we'll do all kinds of different styles that honor different backgrounds and even different cultures to bring this story home. So it's a massive thing, a lot on the tech side. So there's video content, there's music content, there's artistic content, there's lighting content, and that we're not even talking about the promotion and the follow-up outside of that. So it is the biggest service of the year that we do, and
Yeah.
So that's really what it looks like.
And we often bring in, you mentioned kind of guest speakers and guest artists from all over, right? Like that's been a big part in the past of our Christmas experience.
The Christmas story engages so many different types of people. So we want to do this as a community, as a team. So not only in-house, but we look around and who else is in the body of Christ that could potentially help us this year get this message across to our community. And we find a lot of beauty and value in that too, because we get a different perspective. We get somebody from the outside coming in. So that's also part of it. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. So we're talking, again, we're going to dive into this process a little bit more in a minute, but there's all these different moving parts, Nate, you mentioned, and, Kim talked about the communication being a really important part of that. Kathleen, can you tell us at all who leads this process? Like, how do we manage all of those moving parts? Who's ultimately responsible?
Yeah, so we have a project manager that actually goes through and owns everything that is a task for this specific project. For sermon series, it's usually Kim who's the project manager. For smaller events, it'll be somebody from a different ministry. And they're not necessarily the one that's responsible for getting it all done. They're that person who wakes up worried about, are these things happening? Is the bus moving along? Are we making sure we're getting everything? So they're the one that's worrying about, did this happen or not? And they're just checking up on the process, making sure all the tasks are being done by those who've been assigned. And that way the pastor doesn't have to be worried about, is this stuff getting done? The supervisor's not worried about, is this going to get done? There's one person who's making sure the bus is moving along and things are happening, but not necessarily having to do it all. So
And
that's project manager.
You just said it great. The pastor is not the person who has to think about all of the things getting done. That's really important, right? Like, this is different people who are managing this process, people who maybe have project management skills, right? Not somebody who, And we do have that project manager job description, which will be one of the resources that are sent out. So just be aware that that's something that you'll get in your inbox after this. So that'll be kind of fun. Now let's dig into the exciting part of all this. How does this process work? And Kim, I want you to start us out. Where we start, we say 12 plus weeks out, which probably feels forever to people. But what do we start? Like, how does it start 12 weeks out?
Yeah, this is so important. I'm so excited about this. 12-week out is getting the right people in the room. So if I freeze up, guys, I'm so sorry. I tested this before, so we'll just keep on trying. So 12 weeks out, we get the right people in the room and have a meeting. And it has an agenda. And so, and the pastor, let's say it's a sermon series. Is there a kind of event you want me to talk about at all?
Let's talk about like Christmas. So you started.
Okay, let's go Christmas. So let's get the right people in the room around that table, and you have the initial meeting, and the lead pastor there is so important. And those people usually are of course, the project manager, communications, worship person, the worship director, the pastor, tech. Really significant. And some people will be facilities should be in there also. So anyways, you get that right person in the room, and you hear the pastor's heart, you hear the worship leader's heart, and what direction we want to go. And then also the thing that's really important, right person in the room, project manager, someone taking notes. Because especially if you have a verbal processor pastor like we do, you come up with lots of great ideas. Execution is just another thing. So someone, and Kathleen, I'm gonna tell you, she's the queen. We have 2 or 3 people on our staff who can take notes. It's an art, get training, do anything, because it saved us so many times, notes. So someone's taking notes, and you get all that verbal processing out. Now the pastor knows this, and this is really good training to train your lead pastors. They know about this meeting, or the worship pastor also. They know about this meeting, so they've been thinking about it. We also ask for documents. It depends on what's happening. Kind of, because we've had lots of side conversations already about this. But again, in the meeting, taking notes, let the pastor, the worship pastor, all that kind of share dreams, and you capture all of that. But that's where it starts. And then, you kind of go through what's the big win for this event, and then you set it up in Basecamp like we do, which Ann will probably talk about. We start giving assignments. You contact this person, and then the ball keeps rolling.
Yeah. So you mentioned Basecamp, which shame on me, I didn't bring up. What is Basecamp, Kim? What is this magical Basecamp thing that you are referring to?
Because it's a project management software, and I mean software is what it is. And so, and it is assignments and tasks, and it organizes it, and deadlines, and who's doing what. The project manager definitely oversees it and does that. But so you don't have to have 16 emails per, have you done this? And people can look at it, see what's gotten done, and you sign it away. And I could talk about Basecamp for the rest of my life, but we won't right now. But it's just really saves time. It makes your life easier. A lot of people don't believe that, and it's hard to implement, I know, but it does make your life easier if you work the system.
Yeah, and we've used Basecamp. I know Symposia and others use Asana is another good one, especially if you're a low budget church with a small team. A company like Asana offers you low budget to free options. Basecamp is very affordable, especially for larger teams. And there's just all kinds of things out there. If you start searching for project management software, Facebook's going to suddenly start advertising all of them to you. So that's a nice little bonus. But yeah, Basecamp is great. Now we're 6 weeks or 12 weeks out. What's happening in worship arts world, Nate? Like how far you just got the direction from the pastor. This is kind of the feel for the event. What are you in worship arts doing at this point to plan for Christmas?
Yeah. So we've had an initial meeting where, so we're still in the dreaming phase right now, and all the planners are freaking out. So I'm the creative dreaming kind of person. All the planners are like, we're supposed to have a list right now. We actually do have that list because Kim Fowler is a wonderful project manager, and so this enables us to have some great dreaming phases. So right now, so one of the things I'm challenging myself on right now is in this planning, this is going to look different this year, and it has to. I don't think we can just barrel through and say, well, bless God, we're going to do it like we always have. I think if you look at even you guys that know me, you'll understand why the way I communicate is. But if you look at the Christmas story, Jesus engages the people right where they're at. He's stepping right into the situation that's in the world. There's awful things happening. He's stepping right into that and engaging it, and I feel like we're going to have to do the same thing. And, one of the things I'll bring up is, I'm sure everybody who's joining us today, if you're in church work, you've realized the value of online. And so everything we're doing, we're having to look at, because we're planning on, this could all change, but we're going to have less people in the building because of distancing and everything else. So what does that mean for our online audience? The bulk of people that are going to be with us and experiences with us are going to be online. They're going to be on a screen, just like we are right now. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean for this year? We're going to have to approach this differently. I also can't have our big choir up there. That's a difference for us. The sound is going to change. I can't have our big orchestra up there. So again, everything's kind of contracting. It's getting a little smaller, but where's the beauty in that? And how can we actually use this season we're in to engage people right where they're at? So that's what I'm really dreaming about, and keeping in mind that the online experience is something that's going to be something we're really focusing, and I'm sure you're going to talk about that with Jess in the next session. But that's something that we need to be aware of. So
yeah. No, and that's exactly what a lot of this is about, right? Is how do we take this Christmas experience from the live feeling into the digital phase? So tell me about your team, Nate, has how many worship leaders as a part of your team?
Yeah, so on staff we have there's 3 of us plus a music director type of position, and then we have volunteer people that are very capable in leading worship. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. You just feel so blessed to be able to work with the people that we do. Wow, it's amazing.
We are a big church and big church world, and we're kind of doing this case study. So, we've got some folks later who'll talk about how to translate this into smaller church world for some of our smaller churches on the call. But talk to me about how you lead those dreaming sessions, Nate. What does I know you're not the project manager, agenda driven guy on the forum today, but like when you lead a dreaming session with your team, when you're thinking about what Christmas could look like, what are some of the things that happen in those brainstorming meetings?
Yeah, so like Kim said, it's just getting the right people in the room, and then usually there's something stirring already in several of us, and we just kind of throw all of those things on the table. And it is amazing how sometimes it really feels orchestrated, like, okay, we're all tracking on the same place. So we kind of go around and hear what people are saying, and then it just builds on that. Now, if you want a great resource on how creative teams can come up with something and have something to move forward, a book that we went through years ago called Creativity Inc. is the best resource I've ever read on teams being creative. And actually, taking the creativity and turning it into something so it doesn't get lost. And then the process of it, the journey of it. You know, we start way over here with one idea, and we will end up at the end with an idea that none of us kind of walked in, thinking about in its totality, but we've got something so beautiful.
Mhm.
And I just love the river of creativity. You know, it's not this straight line with it's not this straight road that's smooth with lines, and it's more like a river. You know, you're kind of flowing around, and then you get to this destination that's so beautiful. But everybody's got to have a voice, and really, even people that come into thinking, "Oh, I'm not creative," you are creative. You know, even people that think I'm more of a project manager line item. No, you are made in God's image, which means you're a creator. And so I love to hear from everybody. It's often the person that maybe doesn't think they have the best idea that says something in it. Wow, there it is. You know, so it's just hearing from everybody. It's just being able to listen to everybody's ideas.
And so this is why we take so much time, right? We start so early, so we have time to hear all of the ideas. But Kathleen, talk to me about how this feels in communications land, because now you have to market this whole beautiful experience, but you got to do it while it's still winding through the river of creativity. So how do we manage that? How do we get the word out? When do we start? And how do you get those creative things and start pulling them together into a thing that you can put out and invite people to?
Yes. So while all of this dreaming is happening, the communications team is looking really at a promotional plan and like what are the different spaces that we have to be able to announce what we're doing for Christmas, and then figuring out that plan of when we're going to start leaking out the message and all of that. And then we have to look backwards and say, all right, from there, what is our message going to be and what do we really want? We start dreaming about what's the best thing that we could have. Like, yes, videos are amazing to have to invite people on social media and on Facebook. But in order to create those videos, we need to have a script. And so while we know what the topic is and the theme is, communications can start writing some script ups for what we want for a 1 to 2 minute video, and letting the tech team know, hey, this is what we're planning on. What does your schedule look like? We need to start putting a lot of this stuff in process. And at about 8 weeks out, we have that final promo meeting where communications is able to come in with, here's our awesome plan with promotions. We would love to have these videos. Here's the theme that we're like thinking about doing. Knowing Christmas is probably going to be in homes this year, print invitations is not going to be a thing. So it's going to be social media. And so we've really got to be cohesive with what our message is going to be. And so we come to that meeting with our plans, and everybody on the team, worship, tech, understands what that is. And we go away with the full fleshed out plan for communication. So right now we're just dreaming about how do we invite, what tools can we use, and what would we love to have?
Yeah. So we started with 12 weeks out. We did this initial planning meeting that's hearing from the pastor. We're hearing from all the creative voices. And then over the next 4 weeks, the river is flowing of all of these exciting things that we're working through. And then we get to 8 weeks out and communication starts to really bring it in and is starting. So you're as the communications project manager, Kathleen, you're the one that's kind of starting to steer this with the project manager, Kim, into, all right, we're going to start putting some things solidly on paper. And these are some of the decisions that we're going to be making. These are some of the things we're going to be doing. Talk to me about how Central, you guys have I keep saying you guys, we have a very unique way of producing our materials. Can you talk a little bit about how Central produces our Christmas materials? You're a graphic designer by trade, I happen to know. But are you sitting there then and locked in a room producing graphics, or how does that work?
Yeah, so for Central, we actually have an offsite design team. So while I get to be creative and thinking of the theme and kind of what the overall look might be, I get the ability to then pass off my dreams to another design team, and they're the ones that are working on it. But what that does is it really forces me to be thinking ahead and allowing this other design team to have the time to play with my ideas, come up with a couple concepts, and then we'll be able to refine from there. So if we're not submitting some of those things 8 weeks to 10 weeks out to this design team, we're not going to be able to have something to turn around and invite people to. So yeah, it's all off site.
Yeah, and
It's
just to
crazy.
clarify, that final promo meeting, is that where you guys are discussing artwork, or did that happen before?
Yeah, so we're start talking about artwork at the 10 to 12 weeks out, and kind of get an overall feel. What is this gonna kind of look like? Is this a bright, cheery series, or is this kind of more of a soft and kind of ethereal kind of look? So we've got some of those ideas. And then I go away from that meeting with some concepts in my head, and I come up with some ideas, and I'll share those with Kim, the project manager. Here's what I'm thinking for artwork. Do you agree? So that by the time we get to that final promo and arts meeting at the 8 weeks out, we have the first couple ideas for the concepts of the artwork.
Now, Kathleen, kind of final question about promotion. Do you like start with a blank piece of paper every time? How do you decide what you're promoting when? Especially for an event like Christmas, like that could just feel very overwhelming. So how do you manage that tension?
Mm-hmm. Well, the nice thing about Christmas is everybody's thinking about Christmas by Thanksgiving. So like, all right, we've got to let people know by Thanksgiving, these are the dates for Christmas, lock them in, because everybody's kind of just curious and wondering what's going on. But we don't have to start with a blank slate, because we have a document that we use that shows all the visibility areas. So we know for Christmas, this is a high visibility event. And so we know we're going to be announcing it on the stage. We know we'll probably have presence in the lobby for people who are online. We know all of the print materials and where those all exist. So we have a marketing calendar, shows all of the places, and we just start filling in all of the holes, starting with Thanksgiving, trickling all the way through to our Christmas event.
Very good. Yeah. So if we're starting to promote at Thanksgiving, that's really about 3 to 4 weeks out, because at Central, we don't actually run our Christmas event on Christmas Eve. We actually do it about the week before. So we market, we promote, but the process doesn't end there. Kim, what happens after the event? We have this amazing event, and hopefully we'll be able to catch you. I think she's still frozen. So I'm going to have Kathleen. Kim's there. Excellent. Kim, tell us what happens after the event. I mean, do we just like, yay, it's good, we're done, bye-bye? No, she's still frozen. Kathleen, go ahead and tell us what happens after the event.
Yeah. So after the event, we celebrate. We have a debrief, what we call a debrief meeting. And we go through all of the challenges. There's things that did not go right, or things that didn't go as expected. So we talk about those. What didn't we anticipate, but we maybe should have? And also we talk about all the wins, including like how many people reached out for the first time and like said yes to Jesus for the first time. Like, what's that spiritual formation win? What are some wins from kids? Getting all of those wins from ministries just helps us all just celebrate what God is doing in our community, and just reminds us of why we do what we do in this ministry. And we also talk about the wins for like communications, like what worked, what didn't work, how much money did we spend on advertising, and did we get the return on investment, and those kinds of things. So yeah, debrief meetings are amazing, and we actually take all of the notes so that we can go back next year and see what worked, what didn't, what do we have to remember to think about, and really catch all of the things that we can.
Yeah. So Nate, you have touched on this a little bit, but I want to hear more about some of the dreams you have for this year. And I recognize that we're still in that nebulous 4-week dreaming phase where the river is doing its flow. But I've heard some rumors about some fun things that might be happening with Christmas at Central. And as a big church, you know, there's a lot of pressure to go big and keep it big and in the big house, which is what we call our worship center, and to do all of that, which, you know, for where you typically pack this space out. So tell me some of the ideas that your team is bouncing around for this Christmas that maybe can inspire some of the folks on this call today.
Yeah, like I said, we're in a season where everything is contracting. So everything's kind of getting smaller. And we got to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit, because sometimes we're supposed to go counter to that in culture, and sometimes we need to lean into that. I think right now we're feeling like, let's lean into that a little bit. This is where the posture of our nation is. And so some of the things we're dreaming about, again, we're still in the very beginning stages. So this is a rough thing. And but we are, some of the things we're dreaming about is what does it look like to, and I did touch on this earlier, but what does it look like to focus on the online audience for that experience? And then of course we're going to have an in-person thing. So I think this year what we're going to end up doing is focusing on the online audience, how that is going to look, and then take some of those elements and kind of translate them to the big house, our auditorium, rather than the other way around. Usually it's like, hey, this is what we're doing for the big house. Now how is online going to catch up to make sure that it's a good experience for online? This year, I wonder what it looks like if we flip that around a little bit, and so that means that we'll be utilizing the screen in our room quite a bit more. We always do, but maybe in a different way. Our stage setup's going to be radically different. We won't have our 50-piece orchestra and our 60-voice choir. So again, we can change some things up. Again, things are contracting. What does it look like to press into that? What does it look like now that we're doing a lot of video content? Can we take some things outside? Can we perform some songs out in the woods, and have the beauty of nature around us? And then again, so we're going to do that for the online audience, but then how do we bring that inside?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of really fun, creative possibilities here. And I'm just believing that we'll be able to reach still a lot of people this year, even though we're going to have to limit the amount of people in our building. How could the reach still be there? So those are some of the things we're dreaming about. Those are some of the things we're dreaming about.
That is awesome. We want to give some time for some questions. We did get one question from Robin asking for information. I think this was from the beginning, from the website a few minutes ago. I think Robin was referring to the Colossian Forum, and we will include a link to that in the follow-up email after this, so you can click and check out the Colossian Forum, which is a great organization. But feel free to share any of your questions in the Q&A section, and we will get those questions over to Nate and Kathleen. Kim's having some technical difficulties. We're just grateful Zoom didn't crash today. This was definitely, yesterday I was sweating and I was like, oh man, this can't happen again. But so Nate, as we're waiting to see if we get any questions, and can you tell me what churches should do right now today? They get off this webinar today at 1:00, and what is their next step to have an awesome Christmas?
Well, I mean, if you're on this call, if you're on this webinar, you're already thinking about it. So you've already kind of made that first step. You're thinking about Christmas. You're thinking way ahead. I've worked for a variety of different churches. I can tell you Central Wesleyan plans way more ahead than any other place I've ever been, and I see the fruit of that because at the end we've got a plan that we feel like the Lord has laid out, and then we see some results. So golly, I'm gonna sound maybe super spiritual, but you know what? The best thing you can do is start to pray. Like literally, you can start to think about Christmas, pray about, Lord, Holy Spirit, what do you want to see as a result of, us partnering with you in this effort? What is the end result? And that's how, I like to think is, what do we want to actually see? Do we want to just say, hey, we spent all this money and energy and we had a great Christmas experience and people thought it was good. Okay, that's fine, but that would be missing the mark for us. We want to see people connect with Jesus. We want Jesus. We want to see families that are not connected to a local church get connected to a local church, whether that's ours or another one. If God can use us to get, you know what I'm saying? And so ask the Lord what it is he wants to see at the end of your Christmas season. Because if you're going to go ahead and burn some money and burn some energy, you might as well see some fruit for the kingdom, right? Yeah. So again, it's going to sound super spiritual, but man, just pray. Ask the Lord. He'll speak to you.
Yeah. I don't think that's too super spiritual, Nate. And I think you also touched on an important part of this process that we haven't really talked about before. So I'm actually going to pivot over to Kathleen. But Nate mentioned the magic word of what's the objective, what's the win. How important are framing these good wins and objectives to our central team? What does that look like, Kathleen?
Yeah, it's so huge. So one of the things that came out of our brainstorming meeting in our initial planning was thinking about that online experience and people experiencing Christmas at home, and really thinking about the idea of community. So we kick off the fall with community groups and being in community and the importance of that. And with COVID happening, like people being separate from each other, realizing that we need each other is something that has been a theme that has been coming along through this. And so knowing that that's one of the objectives is so helpful for communications to know what kind of tools to be able to use for people who are inviting. So the amazing things that I'm thinking of are, what are pieces of communication that people are already engaging in? When COVID first hit, people were printing out posters to put on their neighbor's door to say, if you need help, like, I'm here for you, and putting their information. So neighbors are starting to reach out to neighbors and getting to know each other. So what are some of those tools, if our theme is that community and Christmas at home and really rallying around each other, what are some of those same tools that we could use? So if we're engaging people to invite their neighbors to home to, like, hey, Christmas looks different this year maybe, but we want to experience what the Christmas story is all about here. So come on over and, like, do Christmas together. And so what does that invitation look like? So I'm super excited about Christmas and what that community piece looks like. And it's so helpful to know what the best tools are for communicating that, knowing the objective is.
Excellent. So now my last same question for you, Kathleen, is we get off this webinar today at 1 o'clock, and we've listened to all of the case study. We've done some brainstorming with a team from smaller churches, and we have heard from marketing, but you would say you get off this, so at 1:05, what should churches be doing to prepare for a great Christmas?
Yeah, so from a communication standpoint, I would be just thinking about, when do you want to start that marketing, and what are those big things that are going to be wins for your communication team, and then go backwards from that. So video creation takes a long time. If it's printing, if you want something great and you want something fast, it's not going to be cheap. So think great and cheap means not fast, but it takes a little bit longer. So really be thinking about what that plan is, and where exactly you want to start promoting, and just make that available for the team so that they know what the goal is and when we're going to start talking about it.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, if you have other questions for this team, go ahead and reach out to Symposia. You can also reach out directly to me at chansky@centralhighland.org, and I can get you in touch with any of these amazing people. And we're going to take a short coffee break. And so what we want you to do is get up and stretch. Get up and get a fresh cup of coffee, catch up on your emails, because we want to invite you back starting at 11 with Jessica Behrens, which is on the team with Kathleen and Kim and Nate. But she is going to be sharing a lot about digging deeper into this marketing side. She's going to talk about what it means to digitally market on social media. And we always get a ton of questions about social media marketing. And so this would really be a good time for you to dig in with an expert in church marketing. She has an immense amount of knowledge here. So go ahead and keep this webinar open. We're going to put the screen up and just kind of let you guys chill, and then we'll be back on probably a couple minutes before 11 just to say hi and ask some questions from you about where you're coming from, and then we'll jump in with Jessica. So thank you guys. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim and Symposia Labs for hosting this first session. Thank you, Kathleen and Nate, and Kim. Thank you so much. We're just grateful that, all the rest of the tech is working this morning, because that's.
Sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. Actually, you look like we have a minute. Do you want to share your one thing? Tell us, what should they do? 1:05. What do you do? Get off the.
Oh, yes. Get the people in the room that need to be in the room, and have your first meeting, and let everyone brainstorm, but get the right people in the room to start talking about it and take notes. That's it. And then get going, start assigning things and get going. But get the right people in the room.
Excellent. All right. Well, so maybe take a minute between now and 11 and set up a meeting, set up an initial planning meeting, and know that you'll have that agenda in your inbox by hopefully before you have that meeting, but we can certainly get it for you. And so set up that meeting over the next 10 to 15 minutes. Thanks, everyone.